Good afternoon and welcome to our interview with Sanjiv Shah, CEO of RMA Kenya and RMA Uganda.
I'm delighted to have this opportunity, Ali Khan.
No, I really appreciate it, Sanjiv. We've spoken a lot before, and I'd just like to go through, your personal background. My theory is that people succeed if they have a passion in life, and I remember you telling me that, Ali Khan, my passion has been cars from a very long time. Can you just tell us a little bit about who you are and where the passion started?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm Indian by origin,
yes,
but I'm a hybrid Kenyan. That's how I describe myself. Indian genes, British education, and Kenyan background throughout. My passion for cars started very early. It started because I was brought up on a sugar estate in Moroni, Kenya.
Which for people who don't know, is out of town.
It's Western Kenya.
Yes.
So I started driving at the age of 9.
Wow.
On the farm.
Yes.
One could.
Yes. Tractors?
No, cars. Actually, it was a little Mazda that I started driving on. Life progressed, matters progressed. The late Shekhar Mehta,
yes,
who was a director in the company that my father represented, which was basically Mehta Group, yes, of companies,
yes,
sugar industry and car dealerships. So the
they
cars
had car dealerships as well.
Yes, Mazda, BMW, MAN tractors, MAN trucks,
yes,
and Deutz tractors at the time. So the introduction to cars, apart from passion,
yes,
was by default through Dad's engagement,
yes,
as CEO of the group.
Yes.
And Shekhar Mehta, when he used to go recceing for the safari, used to pass through the sugar estate in Moroni. And he said to Dad once, he said, "Do you mind if I take Sanjiv out?"
How old were you then?
I was, by that time I was 13.
Yes.
So I was allowed to go out, you know. And it just immersed me more into cars and driving. So by the age of 17, when I could get my provisional driving license,
yes,
and then on to 18, Shekhar Mehta basically said to my father, he said, "Look, I think you really ought to give your son a go in club rallying in Kenya." So I started off club rallying in Kenya in 1981.
And this is when you were 17?
When I was 18,
yes,
going on to 18.
And
actually.
what car were you driving?
It was a Mazda.
Yes.
And then Rob Collins in those days rallied a Range Rover.
Yes.
And we had a Range Rover, which we said, okay, let's give it a go with the Range Rover. But progressing on from that very quickly, and as I completed my A-levels in Nairobi at Hillcrest and ready for university, Dad said, "Look, Shekhar's very encouraging, and I think you ought to do something about this in the UK."
Fantastic.
So I got an introduction into Toyota Team GB. They gave me a shot, and they figured that.
How did you make that happen? Because I can imagine an Indian fellow from Kenya asking Toyota GB for a shot was not an easy thing.
It was not easy to. It's never easy to open doors. My job was to knock on the door.
Yes.
Late Shekhar had basically made a phone call and said, "At least see this guy.
Yes.
See him, and if you can take it further, give him a go. Just sit in the car and watch him drive." So they did.
Yes.
Steve Johnson,
yes,
at the time, and this is now 1984. So Steve Johnson, the Toyota Team GB manager, rally manager, said, "Okay, I'll give you a little test run in the forests of the UK,
yes,
actually in the Welsh forests at the time." And he said, "I think we can polish you up." So I had the speed, but I didn't have the skill.
Wow.
And the passion,
yes,
is what fueled the speed.
Yes.
Excuse the pun there.
Yes.
So that was 84, and first time out in the UK, I won my class.
My goodness.
So I was 19 at the time.
Wow.
And
so do you think that was because of the rallying you'd done in Kenya beforehand?
Sadly not,
yes,
because rallying at that time in Kenya was not based on special stage rallying.
Yes.
It was long sections, and the timing was by the minute, not by the second.
Right.
And European and UK rallying, okay, I mean, Kenya has aligned itself to special stage rallying now, or for some years now, but UK and European rallying was special stage, so the stages were closed to the public, and you were timed to the second. So it's basically racing off-road. It's not rallying and looking out the window.
Yes.
It's racing off-road, and it's quite, yeah, very adrenaline-fueled. So that was 84,
Yes.
and I progressed on from them, and that was with Toyota Team GB. Toyota Team GB supported me all the way till 1990, and we had several class and group wins, several top finishes, and happy to say that I helped contribute to the manufacturers' championship points,
Yes.
which helped Toyota win in the UK for Group A championships.
Wow.
3 years running.
Wow.
So that was my job. That's what I had to do. I did it. I also had the benefit of Per Eklund, Stig
Yes.
Blomqvist,
Yes. Very
who
famous
big names,
Yes,
big names in the UK, and Per
Big
Eklund
names globally.
globally.
Yeah.
So I should say globally. Sorry, and whatever intros and help I got from Shekhar here, Per Eklund was responsible for teaching me the technique of left foot braking and Scandinavian style rallying, basically, which is very different.
Yes.
It's fast, it's furious, but it's a science. And you've just got to get in there and just be a robot, just be a machine, which is very difficult to be when you're passionate about something. So those were the rallying days.
Yes.
And then I changed team to Mazda, Mazda Rally Team Europe. So I've been
You're steeped in the auto rallying culture.
Yes. But I came out of rallying in 1992.
Yes.
Reason is that I had the opportunity to start up a car business.
That's right. That's what I wanted to come and ask you about. Yes.
So I was rallying whilst I was going through university and out of university.
Yes.
And then I thought, well, motorsport, you can be old.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you are. One can be old at 28, 30, or 35 even, because the younger blood comes in.
Is that reaction time? Is that just...
It's less reaction time at that sort of age bracket, but it's more, I would say, outright bottle, as they call it.
Yes.
The younger person is going to keep the foot down for longer,
Yes.
and somehow sort it out when it gets there.
Yes.
And experience teaches you once you've had a couple of bumps that somehow sorted when you get there can become quite bumpy.
Yes.
And I've had 3 major accidents in 8 years. No injuries.
But you look well.
With the grace of God, indeed.
So can I go back? How old were you when you got this opportunity for the car dealership that you were about to tell us about?
Actually, 1986,
Yes.
October 86.
Yeah.
So I was 23 years old
Okay.
at the time.
They're not a small amount of capital you got to put down for a car dealership. How did the opportunity come to you, and how did you seize it?
I was very fortunate.
Yes.
My late father was not only encouraging, but generous.
Yes.
And he offered up the startup capital, not an unsubstantial amount of money at the time, which was just under £500,000.
That's a good deal of money then.
It's a good deal of money, and it was at the time particularly. But it helped me start a business from scratch in the UK, breaking completely new ground with no business.
23,
At 23.
Yes.
It was,
Did you feel daunted, or did you never think about it? You just...
for right or for wrong, I'm one of these people who thinks about the problems after I've entered into the challenge. There's good in that,
Yes.
that you go forward passionately.
Yes.
The bad is it can be quite scary.
Yes.
So it was. I made some very basic commercial mistakes between 86 and 89. So I started off with a lump of capital, which depleted very quickly because of my commercial mistakes.
Yes.
But one learns very quickly when your bank balance starts going down.
Absolutely.
One has to learn very quickly. So I then enlisted the support of Barclays Bank at the time.
Yes.
And my father was still backing me, but he said that there's got to be we have to ring fence the risk factor.
Yes.
But I started to learn the ropes in that business. So I started a new business with a new team. I started off with a Mazda dealership.
Yeah.
Reason being is that I was heading towards the end of my contract with Toyota and was going to step into a Mazda rally car anyway. So Mazda grasped the opportunity and said, okay, you can continue rallying because it's waving the flag, you're flying the flag. So started off with a Mazda dealership, added Saab to it a year and a half, 2 years later.
Yes.
And then just progressively grew the business over 20 years, over 22
so for
years.
20 years you were running this business?
I was running the business with my sister,
Yes.
who is, actually she's a pharmacologist,
Yes.
and she never dreamt of running a car operation. But I pulled her help into it because I needed her shareholding money. That's what it was. Sorry, sis. But 7, 8 years later, after helping me fund the business, so it became a true family business.
Yes.
She joined the business, and she joined the business in the capacity of CFO.
Yeah.
And she turned her skills from pharmacology. She was working in Switzerland at the time, to helping me run a car business and growing it, more importantly.
Yes.
That's where more help was needed. So we recruited locally, and the only two non-locals, as it was at the time, was basically my sister and myself. And we grew it, and we sold out in 2007.
Right.
So I was 44 then.
Yes.
She was 41
Yes.
at the time, and we sold out. We both had to sign a contract to say that we would not enter into a similar type of business in the UK for a good period of time.
Yes.
That would allow basically the business to continue without us competing with our old business again at some point in the future.
Understood.
So with aging parents at the time, my late parents had my sister and I very late. My mother was 37 when she had me.
That's unusual.
Very unusual.
For that time.
For that time, absolutely. And at 40 when she had my sister. So, do the maths.
Yes.
When I was 44,
Yes.
They were getting on a bit.
Yes.
And since I was sent to boarding school when I was 7, I'd never really lived with my parents. Neither had my sister.
Yes.
And we'd had those spates in between, holidays, etc. So I took the decision that, having sold the business, having relinquished all responsibilities, operational and otherwise, let's come back to Kenya.
So you came back in 2007?
I came back in 2007.
Which, if some of our viewers don't know, was also the period when we had our election. And it was quite a volatile time.
Well, I came back, and a couple of months later we had that election.
Yes.
And then we had the post-election scenarios. And I thought to myself, what the hell am I doing back here? It was a scary time for all of us.
Yeah, I think it was.
But I didn't come back for the economy. I came back for my parents.
Yes.
And unfortunately, I did come back at the time, because I only really got to see my father and spend time with him for 6 months. He sadly passed away.
I'm sorry.
And that was very sudden. He was not a sick man in any way, very fit man.
Yes.
But wow, what a blessed way to go. He was out. He was out with my mum. They were in India at the time, visiting. Got up the next day, said, I'm not feeling well, drove himself to hospital with my mum, vomited, and that induced a heart attack, and he passed away.
My goodness, I'm sorry about that. Sorry for your loss.
I was very cut up at the time.
You must have been very close to him, because from what you've described.
Yeah, I mean, my father really was responsible for any ounce of business brain I have. I may not have a lot of a business brain, but whatever ounces of business brain I have, he was responsible for that. He was a very focused man, very humble man. He came from a very, very humble background. He moved to Kenya post-independence as a professional. He was a chartered accountant.
Yes.
I miss my father even now, because I get to situations regularly, not just daily. I mean, it can be daily, but regularly in this business, which we'll come to in a minute. And I think to myself, Dad, what do I do? But you know what? When you lose one parent, you grow up. When you lose both parents, you really grow up. So I think I'm a late starter. I grew up only 6 months ago with my mum passing away.
I'm sorry about that as well.
But fact of life.
Yeah.
Fact of life.
Now, jumping forward to where you are sitting today, right? I mean, first of all, for people who don't know the RMA brand, can you just tell us a little bit about it?
Yes. Look, RMA is a global brand. It's based in Thailand. The owners, it's a family business.
Yes.
It's owned by an American family, the Whitcraft family.
Yes.
So it's not actually Thai people who own RMA because it's based in Thailand. But it's based in Thailand because that's where the RMA operation started. Coincidentally, RMA started in 1986, which is exactly when I started my business in the UK. They're very diverse. It's a global brand. RMA basically has, it's involved in pizza chains, coffee, ice cream, automotive. I came to automotive last because that's the obvious one.
Biggest ticket item.
It's the biggest tick in the item. Automotive in the markets around Myanmar, Cambodia, obviously Thailand.
China?
No. And I should really say not yet, because I shouldn't just say no. I think not yet is probably more accurate. Reason is that RMA as a group has been on an acquisition trail. They own a business in Germany. They have a dealership in Kazakhstan. So I'm really dotting myself around now. Africa, we're not new to Africa though. We're new to Kenya. I'm not new to Kenya. RMA as a brand is new to Kenya. Reason being is that RMA own Guava. Guava is basically Guava manages the Jaguar Land Rover brands in managed markets.
What are managed markets?
Let me try and explain that a little more. Jaguar Land Rover, as a global business, is a huge business. It's a huge brand, and some of the smaller markets would be that their resource would not be best deployed to manage directly. What do I mean by that? There are some markets that are selling as few as maybe 20, 30 cars a year.
Which markets are those?
I wouldn't particularly want to name them because I think I have to be discreet here. But these are markets within Africa. These markets have more potential, but either due to infrastructural reasons, dealership infrastructural reasons, I should say, or partnership reasons, the potential has been limited. So Guava's role, i.e. the RMA sister company, RMA Kenya sister company, RMA family company, I should say even, Guava's role is to manage those markets on behalf of Jaguar Land Rover. So I say we as RMA, make a commitment on behalf of Jaguar Land Rover to sell a number of units and manage those markets, thus referred to as managed markets. The point is we're in some 21 African markets within the African continent.
Including South Africa?
No, South Africa is
a separate market.
It's a separate market. It's actually the market that's run by Jaguar Land Rover itself. They have an office, an academy, training academy, and then they have dealerships, not wholly owned dealerships, but dealership operations, franchise operations. So South Africa is the largest market in Africa for Jaguar Land Rover. I can't see that changing for quite some time, if at all.
This is bigger than the North African markets as well? Or? Are we talking below the Sahara?
Yeah, we're talking Sub-Saharan Africa. Right. Because North African market then goes into other territory, as either Dubai or UK or Europe, depending on which side, whether we're east or west. So Sub-Saharan Africa, the sales office, the admin office for Jaguar Land Rover cars is in South Africa. They are responsible for the units that are distributed within Sub-Saharan Africa. Then there are importers, and RMA Kenya is an importer or a distributor. And we are responsible for Kenya and Uganda, although we're not operational in Uganda yet. So that's the business model. And RMA Kenya, which I'm charged to looks after Kenya and Uganda.
I'm going to come to sort of Africa and then down to the Kenya-Uganda opportunity, but I want, obviously I come from the stock market and there was a lot of noise around the entry because of the CMC saga. How would you characterize, it seems that you just, navigated your way very easily through what was quite a turbulent sort of a sea when you first arrived. How would you, I know CMC is now being sold to Al Futtaim. Were they in the business of selling cars?
My job from a corporate professional image point of view is to try and replicate that of a swan. Of a swan.
Yes.
To show calm and pedal away furiously underneath. Okay. I'm not particularly swan-like, but I still have to take that main character and keep pedaling away. Let's go back to what you were
you
asking.
peddled very cleverly. I mean, it seemed sort of inevitable that I would find you here, but I don't know what peddling you were doing at that time.
Look, it's very sad. First of all, I think it's very sad when a business like CMC, which operated in Kenya for so many years, it was basically present, it was a household name, it represented and represents, I shouldn't say in the past tense, some great brands. You know, Jaguar Land Rover was one of them, and it was a major brand that they represented. But there's Volkswagen and there's Ford and so on and so forth. CMC, I feel that basically as the business grew and as the demands grew from both the consumers and the manufacturers, I think that CMC's business was slightly out of step with that. It was not any particular person's fault. A business is never run on one individual. An individual is charged to lead it. There is a board, there's shareholders, there's stakeholders, and the stakeholders extend to the team members, the employees. And I think it's very sad that as consumer demands in Kenya grew for product, service, level of service, pricing, yes, model variants even, and manufacturers' demands grew because manufacturers' demands are in line with consumer demands. That's how you grow a business. You can't grow it in isolation. I think that's basically contributed to a great deal of their challenges. Once the challenges started, I think that in my opinion, what happened is that there was factionalization within the organization, and perhaps less of a united front. I won't say a disunited front, but perhaps less of a united front. And that created all sorts of speculation. Now, being a public company, or as it was at the time, yes, public view, public opinion is huge. You know, you mentioned stocks and shares.
Absolutely, in the stock market.
And the stock market. And when you get erosion, unfortunately, the erosion starts slowly, but it picks up speed. And that's what happened. There was so much negative speculation. And unfortunately, it becomes very difficult for any individual or a board, yes, to start controlling that, because people vote with their feet. And when business starts slipping and perceptions start gathering, people walk away from a business. I think Yellow Pages used the expression, let your fingers do the walking. People actually used their feet and, yes, started, walking away from that business. This is my opinion. So where do I come into it? Jaguar Land Rover were looking at their contract with CMC for a number of, possibly even years, but it was definitely several months. Yes. And as I understand it, there were recommendations that were being made, how to move the business forward rather than and stop the slippage, yes, move the business forward. For whatever reason, decisions were either made late or weren't forthcoming. I don't know. I wasn't privy to the opportunity. That gave the opportunity. So Jaguar Land Rover started looking around. RMA is already in bed, as I said, with Jaguar Land Rover in these other markets. Jaguar Land Rover is no exception, in my experience, to how manufacturers operate, which is basically when they have an opportunity in a market, they approach their partners in other markets and say, look, there could be an opportunity in XYZ market. If you're interested, put in a bid, yes, put in the proposal, yes, put the documentation together. And I assure you that when you bid for a franchise, it's exhaustive. Our slide presentation was 173 slides. Wow. And it went both... So
it wasn't an elevator pitch then?
It wasn't, no. I mean, I was charged... okay, there's a little misfit in the way I'm explaining it, so let me track back slightly and come back to this point. I was in Kenya, as I explained earlier on, and I was approached, yes, by RMA as the local man, which I am, with automotive experience, 22 years of automotive experience in UK and Europe, with brands like BMW as well, overseas, and Mercedes here, so premium brands.
Yes.
And they said, would you help us put a bid together? So I said, okay, let me see what I can do from the knowledge I had. Now, I have to state that at this point, I thought to myself, I'm getting deeper and deeper back in the motor industry, having left it. But, you know, that's fate.
Yes.
And c'est la vie, you take it and you run with it. So I started work on putting the bid together. Obviously, this is not something I can do on my own.
Yes.
The might of the RMA group,
yes.
their well, purely their infrastructural information from other markets in Africa. I won't say their influence, but because it's not influence, that's not the way it works with motor manufacturers anymore. It's a very open, it's a very transparent process. But their association with Jaguar Land Rover. So really, RMA, the driving force, because of reputation with Jaguar Land Rover. Little me in Kenya, putting together the bid. I worked on it over several months, and it was several months. And finally, we as RMA were invited to present the bid in November 2012, which is what I went to do with 3 very senior directors of RMA Group, because I wasn't really RMA. I wasn't engaged with RMA. I was just their local man. So I did that in November, and we heard 5 weeks later that of the 7 bidders, there were 7 bidders, we'd won the bid. And I'm really glad.
You've got those fabulous offers. Coming back to, I mean, you're in the premium end of the market. I mean, we're talking Jaguar, which is such an iconic brand. We're talking Range Rover. I had the good fortune to go down to Johannesburg. And thank you for that, and really enjoyed myself.
Real eye-opener, isn't it?
It is, because, you know, you're getting in, it's such a fabulous experience. What is the size of this market in Sub-Saharan Africa, Sanjiv? What are we talking about? How many units are being sold? You know, give us some flavour for that.
Okay, let me try and give you a little bit of an idea of Africa market. South Africa, as I said earlier on, is by far the largest market. You know, you're looking at 8,000 units. New units. New Jaguar Land Rover.
Yes.
That's just Jaguar Land Rover.
8,000 units a year.
Plus.
In South Africa.
In South Africa alone. Plus.
What's the second market then in Africa?
Nigeria.
How many is that?
I don't have the exact numbers because data is hard to come by. But it's below 1,000, but it's north of 500. I believe. But I stand to be corrected because I can't put myself or lay my hands on any real data.
Just to get a feel of what we're talking about.
And really, Kenya is the 3rd largest market in Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, I should say. But Angola is really caught up, you know, with all their
So does it
natural
follow like the GDP trend? I mean, is Angola everyone's excited about? I mean, would we expect lots of Jaguars to be sold in Ethiopia soon, for example?
Well, inevitably, commerce, business, GDP are linked. And there are certain businesses that fare better as GDP increases. To answer your question on Ethiopia, look, I haven't been to Ethiopia ever. I've stopped at Addis 20 years ago, possibly. And I don't know what their roads are like.
So also the road, I mean, the South African
its road conditions
are fantastic, aren't they?
Correct. So Jaguar, roads. Land Rover, SUV. We don't necessarily need roads.
So you're covering both bases. So let's go to something like Land Rover. I mean, you know, what...
Land Rover is bound to grow and grow exponentially. It really is, because we do make the most luxurious SUVs. I know that our competitors say that they have this to go off-road and that to go off-road. We have been, and we are legendary in off-road motoring. You know, we conquered the territory with the Land Rover brand. So the family name is Land Rover. And then we've got, in the Land Rover stable, we've got Range Rover. So we've got Range Rover Vogue and that range, the autobiography, the Sport, the Evoque, Discovery range. And there's some exciting news on Discovery product range, which I can't really share today. But that we'll be talking about next year. We'll come to it. The Freelander, the SUV, the compact SUV, the Defender, you know, the old lady, as I call her.
Yes, still very popular all over Kenya.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, military vehicles, police vehicles, very capable off-roader. So why is Land Rover bound to grow? Well, for example, Range Rover, in this market, has completely taken over from the Mercedes S-Class as a luxury car.
Can I ask you, what is the size of this market for like a Range Rover?
Okay, the market size, the total industry volume, TIV, this year is heading to between 14 and 16,000 units. This is based on January to April units.
14 to 16,000
industry volume, total market.
In the full year?
In the full 2014
These are
calendar.
brand new vehicles.
Registration of new vehicles.
Yes.
Okay. But 85%, 87% of those registrations or vehicle sales are commercial vehicles. So, you know, it kind of, when you start getting into it, it's very skewed because the SUV market is 1,700 units, or was, I should say, just over 1,700 units last year, 2013. I believe that's going to be closer to 1,800, possibly 1,900 units this year. But let's look at that a little more in detail, because in the SUV market, everything comes in SUV, from Land Cruisers, Land Rover, Defenders, and those are the utility 4x4s. You know, the vehicles you see in Army Green or Police Blue, or etc. But the luxury SUV segment is also in there. And in the luxury SUV segment, it really is two main players. It's us, Land Rover, and Toyota, inevitably. So what we've done, and one of my jobs, is to basically bring price positioning into it and model positioning. The Land Rover product range available here was not limited, but it was limited by variants. Let me explain. So we've got 6 models within the Land Rover range, from the Defender up to the Range Rover. And the entry price into the Land Rover family was quite high. It's now below 6 million shillings for a brand new car.
And previously, what would you have said?
It was if you exclude the Defender, it was north of 8.5, 9 million shillings.
So quite a big. You've reduced the ticket size.
So you've got the optical price positioning, but within the variants also, you know, not every buyer wants DVD screens in the rear and all singing, all dancing car, because they may be using it for a utility purpose. So what we've done is we've introduced a minimum of 3 to 4 variants with each model. So what I'm actually saying is we've got 6 models, but 24 variants. So
you got more price points for the consumer.
More price points and spec points. So if you're going to use the car for a school run, and by default, you've got I won't say kids, but young adults to transport, because they don't like being called kids anymore. Young adults to transport. They might want to be entertained in the back with their DVD players and Bluetooth, etc. Then there's a spec for that. Or there's a spec for, say, a company car buyer who's got a company car allowance and wants to spend somewhere in the region of 6 million shillings for a brand new car with a service plan and a 3-year warranty, a full backup plan. And there's a price point for them. Because,
you know, frankly, that was one of the criticisms of CMC, that they weren't really, you know, the service side wasn't up to scratch. I mean, everyone who's spoken about you guys is saying your service levels are extremely high, and I think that's been a very successful move on your part.
Well, I say this with caution, because our service levels are higher than previously experienced in Kenya, but they're not high enough. Those that have the misfortune of working with me know that I'm very demanding and potentially difficult.
Perfectionist.
Well, I won't go as far as that, but I always put myself in the shoes of the consumer and say, you know, what would I want? So our service levels are higher, and I'm pleased that they are, but I'm not pleased that they're high enough. We've got some work to do, and we've got training programs in place, both in country and out of country, both technical and non-technical. And we're really beefing up our support systems to cater for that. So I'm a little engaged at the moment with customers who are not so happy, and I don't mind saying that openly, because it's recognition. But we know what we're doing wrong, and we just need to train our way out of it. When you talk about the price entry, look, the manufacturer, whether it's Jaguar, Land Rover or any other manufacturer, will more or less give you, the importer, the variant and the price that you require.
Yes.
But it's tied up to volume.
Yes.
And that's the catch.
Right.
So I've got the pricing.
But you've got to push more product.
But I need to push more product.
Yes.
And that's
how has the first 12 months been? Because, I mean, it's been a transition for the Tata took over JLR, didn't they, not too long ago? Yes. So there's been quite a lot of change. How have you found, you know, it's early days yet, right? And yes. No one's going to hold you to whatever's happened. But are you happy with the visibility? Are you happy with demand side?
Well, being a demanding person, I'll never be happy.
Yes.
Because the day I'm happy, I'm probably sitting on my laurels.
Yes.
Look, I mean, first of all, Tata have put in an incredible amount of money globally into Jaguar Land Rover. That's what's spurring all these new models.
Yes.
Jaguar Land Rover UK, Jaguar Land Rover South Africa have given us enormous support once we started moving forward with this operation in Kenya. They've given us support with technical training. They've given us support with product and more or less just about everything we've asked for. So the support has been great. That part of it I'm delighted with.
Yes.
The progress in Kenya, since January this year,
yes.
We're making some real progress. KMI, the Kenya Motor Industry statistics, will prove that.
Yes.
We're making some real progress on numbers.
Yes.
We are starting to really dominate that luxury SUV market.
But that's dominated by the Range Rover.
Range Rover Sport, and now Discovery.
Yes.
I mean, previously the entry price for a Discovery was in the region of 10 million shillings, 12 million shillings, sorry, not 10, 12 million shillings. You can now buy a Discovery for 8 million shillings, and below even. Which means we are now starting to compete with Toyota Prado, Mitsubishi Pajero, Nissan Patrol. But our car's got more bits on it, and you know it's got the Land Rover badge as well, and they're huge followers of Land Rover.
Absolutely.
So the progress is good since January, and let me put it into perspective. The official contract for Jaguar Land Rover in RMA Kenya commenced on the 3rd of February 2013.
You're right.
But there were court cases which were well publicized. So we were somewhat handcuffed, and it was very difficult to swim through the treacle that existed at the time. Even walk through the treacle was hard. And really our operations commenced on the 14th of October 2013. We had a number of customer orders already placed, but momentum has really gathered from January 2014, this year. We had a slow May, but up to April we're ahead of the game, our own plan, which I'm very pleased to say so, both in numbers and in terms of profit and loss.
Yes.
I'm really pleased to report that we're not in the red for a startup operation. We're in the black.
That's miraculous.
It's miraculous, certainly, because we'd budgeted for and forecasted to be in the black, in the red,
yes.
But we're in the black, and but that could get chipped away very quickly. But I'd like to say not under my watch if I can help it.
I can believe it. A couple of last questions. What car do you drive?
I'm very fortunate.
Yes.
I drive a Jaguar F-Type.
Yes.
We launched this, and in fact you were at the launch. That was on the 22nd of April this year. That was the first official sports car launch in Kenya, of a two-seater sports car.
Yes.
It's low slung, so I have to be a little easy when I approach speed bumps.
Yes.
But it doesn't scrape over speed bumps, neither the chin scrapes or the actual underbelly of the car. It's a fantastic car. I'm also fortunate enough to be able to have access to a Range Rover when I go on safari.
Oh, fantastic. And what is the Range Rover experience? Describe it to us.
You know, that is just luxury motoring, epitome of luxury motoring. It's basically like sitting in a very luxurious armchair that wafts you along at speeds I can't mention because the boys in blue might be interested in it. It's very smooth, it's very comfortable, it's very, very capable. I took it to Laikipia last weekend, over the long weekend. Previous weekend I had it in the Mara. And I tell you something, that car puts a huge smile on my face, the way it does things effortlessly. The F-Type, that's just exhilaration. The sound and the whole execution of a sports car, and it is just so, and I don't mind saying, it's just such a sexy car.
No, it is. All your cars are sexy.
We'd like to think so.
So Sanjiv, you know,
Yeah.
we've been in the game a little while. What does the future look like? Is it bright? Are you getting up in the morning and charged up? And how do you feel about what's the region and your opportunity?
I'm so excited I'm not sleeping.
Oh.
No, that's not true. My wife will tell you otherwise. Of course, the future, I mean, it's cliched. I'm going to use some cliched words here. It's very exciting, but it is. We are going to grow, and we are going to grow very firmly and in a very stable manner, in a very sustainable manner. We're going to grow between now and 2017,
Yes.
and we're not just relying on the Defender being sold to institutions,
Yes.
and making the numbers. The future is very exciting with Land Rover because of all the models that are coming out. New model, 2 new models every year for the next 5 years. And these are addition models, so they're not replacement models, mainly additional. With Jaguar, similar story. Our roads are improving. We've got some nice bits of road now in Kenya. And we've now got some Jaguars on the road. Is it exciting? Yes. That's from a product point of view. From a corporate point of view, we're going to grow out of Nairobi as well, but we want to do it in a sustainable way. What I mean by that is, you know, taking on expensive properties, taking on expensive premises, and then lumping everything onto the consumer in labor charges and vehicle pricing. That's not sustainable. It's glamorous, but it's not sustainable. So we've got 2 mobile units. I think this is important. We hear about this. We've got an off-road mobile unit. It's a fully kitted out Land Rover 130 workshop, and we have a fully kitted out on-road unit, van-based. We've kicked off with service clinics in Mombasa. We're going to extend that to Nakuru, Kisumu, Eldoret, Nanyuki. We already have regular service clinics in Nanyuki, mainly catering for our Defence Force,
Yes.
and the British Defence Force as
Yes.
well, based there.
Yes.
A lot of Land Rovers
So
there.
you're supporting the Defence Force?
We're supporting that. And what am I saying? Really, from a corporate point of view, very exciting because we will grow out of Nairobi.
Yes.
But I want to do it in a sustainable way, by which I mean we need to have a sensible cost base.
Yes.
To say cheap cost base, it never works that way. You've got to put in the money. You've got to invest.
Yes.
But a sensible, cost-effective operation in other regions. So that is at the top of the agenda. In the meantime, like I say, this mobile service units are servicing, excuse the servicing wording, are looking after those needs.
You brought yourself closer to the consumer in many places. Someone like Nanyuki, they probably haven't seen you.
This is the idea. I mean, for example, you know, number of customers in Narok and Bomet. Even if we had an operation in Nakuru from now, that's not necessarily convenient to those Narok Bomet customers. So we go to them in a convenient location. And what we're doing also is that we've not officially, but we are partnering up with Kingsway Tyres.
Yes.
In certain location where we are using their premises.
Right.
Regular
that was
dates.
your model for, yeah.
Yeah. So what it actually does is, you know, on the whole, people know where Kingsway Tyres are based, in Mombasa, for example. They can go to that location on said dates, which we're publicizing, and we will have our trained technicians and trained personnel there on pre-marked dates. And consumers will have the opportunity to interact with us. And those customers which have registered with us, and we are actively encouraging them to register their interest, we will then gather momentum on that. So yes, we are going to the consumer. And it's a cost-effective way of doing it, and it's convenient to the customer as well.
Let me ask you one final question, because you have such a view on this region. Are you excited about East Africa, about the opportunity for this region as a whole? If I can ask you, that's the final question.
I'm very excited. I'm excited twofold. Look at the buzz around. I know we've had our challenges recently in Kenya, and that's sad, but we'll get through it. But there is a buzz.
Yes.
There is a buzz in Kenya, there's a buzz in the region. We are the gateway to East and Central Africa. And by that very nature, there's a lot of opportunity that just needs to be, I won't say exploited, but explored. My job's to explore those opportunities and make them into reality. That's the excitement. I'm allowed to go hunting rather than farm.
I shall leave it at that.
Thank you.
Sanjiv, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
Okay.